Hold on to your tinfoil hats, folks. This presentation is going to make you very upset. Treason, mass assassinations, shadow government, fake news, previous administrations, all involved in this mess. I am about to show you the absolute proof. You will be alarmed by what you see and initially think it's too incredible and too impossible to be believable. But it is all true. The ugly, ugly truth. Super soldiers actually exist. This is an advertisement for Super Soldiers and Mind Control Summit number 3, of which there have been many more. The very image of this conjures up ideas of conspiracy theory, does it not? The stories being told by the people involved in this are only partially true. The ridiculous stories told are designed to provide cover for the real truth, the very real ugly truth. This Facebook page is called Targeted Individuals International. As you can see, there's another group similar called Targeted Torture Innocent Individual. The discussion is FBI outsources targeting of Americans to contractors in order to circumnavigate the law. FBI and NSA outsource their harassment of targeted individuals and watch-listed individuals to private firms. Suffice to say at this point that we, the people, are actually at war with our own government. So, just who are these government contractors and how are they financed? According to this particular group, MK Ultra is a CIA program that trauma brainwashes children and adults so they can serve as terrorists, assassins, sex slaves, sex blackmailers, movie stars, and singers used to advance the Luciferian Jewish plan for a world government dictatorship. The New World Order is what they are referred to. And what is the common thread of all of this? The Muslim Brotherhood and the quadrillions of dollars that they control. This massive influence has made millions of Americans cheap whores by teaching them how to use government programs fraud to get rich in a massive transfer of wealth. This is the real reason why our country remains so divided. The far left has influenced generations of people for years and years, providing us with the evidence that we need to understand why they all hate Trump so much. Hillary Clinton even went on the record at a school telling children that being in a gang is sort of like having a family. This man, Edward Archer, was on the terrorist watch list of the FBI as having voices in his head. So, of course, they immediately point to this person as being a mentally ill person needing help. I think we can all agree that the underlying motive behind this event was to bring up the issue of gun control. Archer is supposed to still be in custody. The question is, did they book and release this terrorist? This article even states that the biggest regret was that the firearm used was stolen from a fellow police officer's home in 2013. Does that sound like real or fake to you? This page is only a partial list of all of the terrorist acts that I have documented, fully showing all of these criminals and terrorists are involved in government program frauds. Voice to skull, synthetic telepathy, remote neural monitoring are all elements of artificial intelligence and mind reading that are involved in the truth behind what is really going on. Considering the group that this article on Manchester is posted in, should we not consider this as evidence of what is really going on? This particular guy blew himself up at a Disney concert while the singer on stage is singing a song about "I hate America." Question yourself, was that singer in on this act? I think we can assume at this point that President Trump is fully aware of what's going on based on his statement about this event soon after it took place. They are losers given no choice but death. I sent a thick package of my documented evidence about all of this to President Trump through General Mattis. That same week, he made a speech to the intelligence community about there could be tiny little cameras anywhere. Do you think I made an impact about how his life may be in danger from these criminals? This is how and where the implantation is done. The neural mapping of the brain was accomplished by scientists many decades ago. Look at this picture and you can see the eighth nerve of the inner ear that goes to the brain, otherwise known as the hearing nerve, goes through the temporal bone at the open window of the human brain. This is where it goes. This is exactly the methodology being used to create death bots. The implants are actually micro robots with moving parts and servos designed to make pressure changes and cause severe pain to the nerve that they're on. By now, all of you should be getting very upset by what you've seen. Obamacare was written to include the implantation of chips in every American in the United States. Every American in the United States is in the ACA bill, but they don't want to repeal it. The micro-robot implants show up on CT scans and MRI images as foreign objects on the eighth nerve at the open window of the human brain. We have the hard evidence. We have the best ear surgeon in the state of Arizona prepared to testify. This group is called Intervoice, the International Hearing Voices Movement. 6,680 members as of this date. Local people involved in these games are right here in these pictures as members. Do you think it's possible we might actually be able to find some actual victims in these groups that are now in mental hospitals receiving treatment, given seriously bad psychotropic drugs like Thorazine in order to be able to survive? And the much bigger question becomes, how involved is the psychiatric and medical community involved in this mess? This is part of the cover-up. Is it truth or is it science fiction? Here's a group called Electronic Harassment and Gang Stalking. This person made a post about chemtrails, which is a simple myth, unless anyone can come forward with physical evidence that can be collected by various means of simply going up into the vapor trail and collecting particles from it. This enters into the discussion of nanoparticles, cover-up. Why do groups like this even exist? The answer is misinformation and disinformation. Freedom from covert harassment and surveillance. Organized stalking informers. Do you know what OSI really is? It is the division of the Department of Economic Security Police Department. Wolves in sheep's clothing? Or a great, big, nasty, ugly joke? Enter the Saul Alinsky campaign. This group says they have over 10,000 members. They are a human and civil rights organization, nonprofit, involved in the study of nanotechnologies and nanosensors. They are the same people that appeared at the recent Super Soldier Summit in Las Vegas, testifying to the fact that they are implanted, claiming they are victims. Saul Alinsky programming. Exactly opposite of what is the truth. They are all involved in the government program's frauds. In two Tea Party groups all over the country, we all have known for some time voter fraud is a big problem in this country. President Trump took it upon himself to establish a voter fraud commission, and the very first study that was done was in Kansas by the Secretary of State, and they found 7 million duplicate names registered in a 2-state summary just by overlapping 2 states' voter records. 7 million people in the first study. Bernie Sanders said it right. We cannot afford to put all of these criminals in prison, so let's give them a free college education. I have personally documented several cases of voter fraud in Arizona and ballot harvesting, documented it, reported it to the proper authorities in Maricopa County, only to have them run from me, neglect me, and absolutely do nothing about it. Draw your own conclusion. Is everyone clear on the subject yet of the Russian involvement in the election? Blaming Trump for the collusion with the Russian people that interfered with our presidential election? President Trump issued an executive order to stop Muslim countries from traveling freely to this country. This man, James Lewis Robart, put a stop on that effort, and this is his address: 2148 Northwest 201st Street. It's a fake address. Look who shows up at his address: Dagbir Sandhu, Taj Sandhu, Tajbir Sandhu. These are all alias names. Now, to read my own script, just notice all of the alias identities listed for this person just at this address. This is the epitome of the matrix of frauds. The current address listed for Judge James Lewis Robart shows as Shoreline, Virginia, but the zip code is a Seattle address. Therefore, this is a completely fake address used only for the purposes of fraud. Mr. Rudy Giuliani was the first contractor that Trump hired to look into what he calls cyber stealing, because the government programs fraud are all done via the internet. Another group of alias names directly under that, and here comes James Louis Robart with another alias name. Folks, this is how terrorism is financing it, and they're trying to claim President Trump obstructed justice. So, considering Obama made it clear that it was a massive transfer of wealth, what is the source of dark money used in Arizona to get people elected again that we cannot even believe somebody voted for? Do I have to name names? Millions of criminals got rich on government programs and are now sitting at home on the internet with nothing better to do. Enter the elements of gang stalking and the internet game. First, of course, they have to pick a target. Then they study the daily habits of the victims so they know what to do. Break into their home, drug them with scopolamine so there is no memory of the event, kidnap the victim, take them to a facility where they have surgical equipment available, including an MRI machine, by the way, surgically implant the cochlear implants, push the lenses into the cochlear implants, which are cameras, begin the personal sabotage process by claiming that he is crazy so he cannot get any help, and then, believe it or not, show up in person in front of the victim just so they can be in the TV show that's being broadcast on the internet. How sick is this game? PAX Arizona is one local group claiming to be victims when in fact they are gamers. The name itself, PAX, even implies they made a deal with the devil. The article reads, "Contact Ninan Duval. To all targeted victims nationwide and worldwide, please contact me with your story and your complaints. I will take it and forward it to Ms. Massey Monroe, future candidate, Democratic Party, running for the USA California Senate election 2017-18, and in her book, Covert Mind Control, Slavery, and Covert COINTELPRO, War and Torture." This is a company that is one example of the methodology behind the evil game called satellite terrorism, being broadcast on the internet. Group communications, instant messaging so they can talk to each other behind the scenes, including a video broadcast that can go up to as many as 10,000 members in real time, because it is a live real-time broadcast. This is how bad it really is when you consider that a simple John Doe lawsuit filed in civil court to these companies can produce the black box of evidence necessary to prove they are involved in spreading acts of terrorism on the internet. Very sad. Here's another example of the nothing better to do but waste time on the internet discussing acts of terrorism. TalkShoe is another company similar to Raid Call that broadcasts these treacherous acts as a game just to mess with victims. This particular night I was on the phone with a group of these people as the special guest Brad A. Heward tells what he's found out to be truth about targeting. And the group calls themselves Patriot TI investigations. Sound like Sololinsky to you? Now on to some more physical evidence. This woman actually came to me asking for help. That's how sick this game is. From across the room, you can see the bump on this lady's right eye. That's a perfect circle about the size of a 1/4-inch lens. Off center, not directly over the pupil, but off center, so it's very visible. You would not notice this unless you were looking for it. I've met with this lady in person. I saw these lenses in both of her eyes. She sent me multiple pictures asking me for help to figure out how to get out from under the severe torture that her so-called perks were putting her through. They are visible to the naked eye is the point. The physical evidence is right there. The active use of non-lethal weapons of the military are also involved. This one depicts what's called the active denial system of the United States military. It's designed for crowd control because it makes your blood boil to scare the daylights out of you and stop doing what you're doing. It is also a space-based weapon designed to scare you into stop doing whatever it is you're doing because they don't like you resisting the torture. Simple as that. I have witnessed it with my own eyes. Is espionage a motive to want to be a scumbag robot? This is the same woman that came to me looking for help. She works at Airports Council International. So I reported her for what information I have from her to the Arizona State Bar Association, and they were not interested in what I have to show them. Why is that? Every single law enforcement agency in this country says the same thing to the public. If you see a crime, report the crime. Otherwise, how would we know it exists? So here's a report I got back from the Arizona Counterterrorism Information Center, otherwise known as ACTIC. This is known as a task force fusion center made up of several state, local, and federal agencies on the subject of counterterrorism. Question yourself, why do they ask for reports if they do nothing about it? What do they actually do? By now, you should be able to answer this question for yourself. How did they dig a tunnel over 1 mile long directly to the commode in the prison cell of El Chapo Guzman? Why don't we get this information in headline news? El Chapo Guzman is admitting in court that he has been implanted with two-way communication microchips. And the article goes on to say, U.S. court case expected to be a major undertaking. Why? This crime boss is supposedly still being held in custody. He is wearing evidence of the implants. They are visible in his eyeballs. Why are they not prosecuting him for those treacherous crimes? If you look closely at this photograph, you can see just how El Chapo Guzman is in his head talking to his crew without moving his lips. The same major presenters, otherwise known as experiencers, at the Super Soldier Summit have written books on the subject of satellite terrorism. Dr. John Hall, famous for it, wrote a book called The New Breed, Satellite Terrorism. Follow-up book called Guinea Pigs. Here's another one called Soul Catcher, etc., etc., etc. Look them up. Here is an excerpt from The Matrix Deciphered by Dr. Robert Duncan, a man that Jesse Ventura himself interviewed. Says he's responsible for the development of these programs when he worked for the CIA. Subtopics of the excerpt: architecture of the matrix, resonant feed forward neural network for speech recognition, sequential brainwave entrainments for speech recognition in the Wernicke Center for the Human Brain. So who are the globalist elite? They are the shadow government, the deep state, fake news media, organized crime, aka gangs, conglomerate corporations, social networks, Hollywood elite, Muslim Brotherhood, all of the above, aka the Matrix. This is Hillary Clinton at a debate, obviously in her head, talking to her handlers. So did crooked Hillary really cheat? This particular photo was photoshopped in order to have a conversation about whether or not she had a communications ear fob in her ear in order to cover up the truth. The implant in her right eye is visible in this picture. And so what is the connection? Do we know anything about government overreach and Obama-financed terrorism? This article says scientists seek a device to eavesdrop on voices and secret thoughts in your head. Think we can assume by now this is nothing but government pork to cover up the fact that they've already been doing it for decades? Millions and millions and millions of hard-earned American tax dollars poured into nothing but a scumbag program to line somebody's pockets. That much we can be certain of. So, how did a person like Elon Musk get so filthy rich? Could it be that he was involved in the billions of dollars spent by the Clinton and Obama administrations on topics like global warming? Here's an article publishing Elon Musk as telling the public that he thinks cyborgs are really cool. And he thinks you're going to become a cyborg, and that's just okay. That's just okay. Is that okay with you? This is the result of a simple Google search on Mark Zuckerberg and mind reading. Tea Party groups like ours have been targeted by the federal government for many years. According to the White House's visitors log, Mark Zuckerberg made many trips to see President Obama during his tenure. As you can see, Mark Zuckerberg might reveal mind-reading brain implants. Does this then not explain to us why Facebook is censoring anyone that is opposed to globalism? So here is one of the published articles. January 14th of this year, Mark Zuckerberg telepathy technology. Is Facebook hiring neuroscientists for mind-reading social networks? What do you think? Logical conclusion. there are two classes of cyborgs. Number one, the globalist elite. They are willing to undergo the minor surgery in order to run their own crew or a talking head like Clinton and Obama. Number two, the victims of the globalist elite, which are drugged with scopolamine, kidnapped, surgically implanted with micro-robots that cause severe pain on the eighth nerve, allow artificial intelligence to read thoughts, transmit loud noises and hundreds of real voices by voice-to-skull hearing, using the example of how you control the victim, quote unquote, we want you to kill the president or we will kill your family. And this goes on 24/7, 365 days a year. Pure torture. This video is an analysis of the similarities between Aaron Alexis, aka the Navy Yard shooter, and the movie called Control Factor, released in 2004. Only available, by the way, from Amazon. Took it down everywhere else. Navy Yard shooting, ELF mind control, and the movie Control Factor by Video Dailymotion. Dailymotion.com has it available for you to watch on the internet. It is a good analysis. You should take the time to watch it. Later in the news came the FSU shooter, which was a Christian whistleblower that chose suicide by cop in order to escape from the torture. He knew he couldn't take his own life and still go to heaven. And here he is dead. And yet, what's the very first thing we hear from our government and the news media? These are not acts of Muslim extreme terrorism. These are crazy people. They're mass assassinations, like what took place in Manchester. Kate Steinle was shot in the face. The mass shooting in Orlando, the Boston Massacre, etc., etc., etc. And of course, the discussion about sanctuary cities, Islamic terrorists, or Mexican mafia. How many are really still in custody? MS-13 involved? Are they booked and released or just deported? I think we know what President Trump is doing now, don't we? These are two of them from the Manchester Massacre. I use them because it's current. To quote Trump again, they are losers given no choice but death. I call them death bots. Welcome to America, right, folks? And so it goes. Yes, they are victims on top of victims. And what's the agenda? Not to kill cops. It's to destroy our Second Amendment rights. They want us to be without the means of protecting ourselves. Simple as that. You have to be completely blind not to be able to see how abnormal that photograph is. That is a camera lens. I can personally guarantee to you that this guy was not a willing victim. So in your own mind, would you consider this guy a super soldier or a cyborg? Even as fuzzy as this picture is, the lens in his left eye is very visible. It's right there. Tough to miss. If you don't know what you're looking for, you won't notice it. It is right there in that photograph. Why is he a conspiracy theorist? Misinformation? Disinformation? Super soldier? Cyborg? Think we can determine that based on who we know he is? He's a crook. Here is another quick Google search of the Dr. Phil show on Hearing Voices. He has had several people on his show to talk about hearing voices in their head, but I'm not mentally ill. I'm wearing microchips. Are they really trying to help these victims? And who do these people like Dr. Phil answer to? Draw your own conclusion. The series Nikita, which is still on Netflix, by the way, is all about the development of trained assassins that were kidnapped at a young age and turned into nothing but murderers for the government. Rogue agencies trying to figure out who the good guy is and who the bad guy is. You can see from across the room how obvious the implants are in these two people. These two were taken directly from the movie Control Factor. The video camera implants in their eyes are extremely obvious. What are these two guys famous for? Are they famous for telling us all the truth? Or are they fake news? You don't have to be very good at it in order to see the lenses in these eyes. They're visible right there. At the same time, this absolutely breaks my Christian heart. It also infuriates me. But the Holy Spirit comes to me to present this to you, to make sure you understand you're being lied to. Think about who this man represents himself to be. The implants in his eyes are visible right there in that photograph. Does that look sad to you? I fully understand the nature of the scams, and now so should you. Don't kill the messenger for showing you the simple truth. Facts are facts, and they're impossible to argue with. This man is chipped. The video lenses in these two local attorneys are also very obvious. This guy says, "Come to me. If you're a criminal, I'll get you off." And that's what he's good at. I met with him personally before I knew. The normal lines of a human eyeball are broken up and visible in that photograph at the edges of the lens. That's how you know for sure. I think we can rest assured at this point that President Trump's attorneys team, all good attorneys, are going to show the evidence of Mr. Comey's treachery. The eye implants in him are also visible in this picture. Watch for it. What do we do in the event that they do not expose this in that particular civil court lawsuit? President Trump has made a big point of putting the power back in the hands of the people. So that is your answer. We, the people, can do it ourselves. Make a big stink. Do the visible implants in these two characters' eyes surprise anybody here at this point? Does a sitting United States Senator make enough money to be able to afford a compound in Arizona worth well over $8 million on his salary? I see some special elections coming up in our near future, folks. By the way, just so you understand the spooky nature of what's really going on, public records indicate this guy's a complete ghost. So is his daughter. So is his family. They do not appear on public records anywhere. Why? Not to come to his defense by any stretch of your imagination, the implants are also visible in this man's eyes. But now we know what the source of dark money is. We can't blame him for everything that's going on. He's just one evil source, all he is. What are they going to claim next? That he's really a Russian? I have literally been threatened hundreds of times by different people for my efforts in exposing what I refer to as the above the law club. We all know that's who they think they are. Why are they still out walking around? The implants in both of their eyes are so visible it stinks. We all suffered through 8 long years of treason, sedition, treachery, criminality, organized crime from this man right here. You have to be completely blind not to see his agenda. He was elected telling us that he was a good Christian going to church with his family every week. Not long after his second term started, he began telling us this is no longer a Christian nation. The implants in his eyeballs are also visible in this photograph. And in his history, he also goes into his head a lot. Pat yourselves on the back and give yourselves a giant round of applause for electing President Donald J. Trump. What direction would this country be headed today if Hillary was our president? Here's a set of 4 more taken from Nikita and the Control Factor. They are so obvious in these people. It's unbelievable. I don't know what to use. Unbelievable. You can't believe your own eyes. Unbelievable how obvious it is. Yes, this is some very, very scary stuff. So exactly how do we go about protecting ourselves and our family? First of all, be awake and very aware of your surroundings. They're looking for soft targets. Be aware of the fake stories that you hear of fortunes that are made that sound too good to be true. Chances are they're fake stories covering up for fraud. Learn how to examine public records like I do. I'd be more than happy to teach a class on this subject so that you can understand exactly what I do and how I can see what is there in public records for what it really is. Document the crimes like I have. Then file police reports just to get it on the record. Mike Pence made it clear to us during the election primary season that we need to file reports so that it is on the record. We need to file complaints with our elected officials. They need to be made aware that we are aware of what is really going on and get a response back from them in writing if you can. Put it on the record. Do not trust anybody on face value. Generally speaking, people will out themselves as being fake based on what they tell you they stand for or they believe in. Anyone that is against making the United States of America great again, generally speaking, is going to be a fraud. But above everything else, protect yourself by do not violate the law. I don't. This picture is part of a report from a private investigator, a company called Columbia Investigations. Shows a spectrum analyzer demonstrating the frequency of radio signals that were scanned. She is involved in the scams, but it does indicate that a regular RF scanner, simple RF scanner, can be used to detect radio signals coming from someone that is chipped. You can buy a very simple one from Amazon for $12 to $20. Good idea to have one to protect yourself. I am near the end of my presentation, so now I'm going to poke a little fun at it. We need to find a black box. That statement opens Pandora's box into all of this. What is a black box? It is the data itself, contained within the databases of the government agencies involved in all of the fraud. We need to get the black box. Last week, President Trump finally completed his cabinet. So now they have all of the heads of all the departments appointed by President Trump should be able to gain access to the government databases where all of the fraud and all of the terrorism and all of the treachery and all of the sedition and all of the treason and all of the everything is contained within our own government records. We can only hope they do it as quickly as possible. The Starship Enterprise had their own pet cyborg. The black box of Mr. Data was contained within his implanted microchips. How much data can be downloaded, examined, documented, and made into evidence directly from the environment of a super soldier or a cyborg? The answer to that is very simple. The cyborg is in fact wearing the evidence of the black box itself, and data can be retrieved directly from the individual by a simple examination. President Trump has made it very clear, both during his campaign and since he was elected, that he wants to put the power back in the hands of the people. So how, in fact, do we defeat the tyranny of the shadow government involved in this mess? We need to take his lead and do it in civil courts. He's already filed against Director Comey for that reason, because he cannot get any help from the existing government. Why civil courts? Because the evidence of the evil games are in the data themselves. It is not possible to do this without access to the internet. So what data is it? Internet service provider account data, smartphone account data, and the data taken directly from the hardware used itself. If you have ever been to technical support from your ISP, you know that they can tell you exactly what you have connected to your internet service cable. There are so many laws being broken in the matrix of frauds, they are too numerous to mention without taking another hour of this presentation. We simply must demand that these laws are enforced. And remember, the nature of the matrix implies there are multiples of people involved. So RICO laws apply. Yes, it is time to get angry. Who is in control of your vote? Who is in control of your mind? Let's all hope it's not Alex Jones. By now, you might be able to guess whose eyes these are. Implant cameras can't be avoided. They jump off the screen at you. They're a little fuzzy. What if they were in your face? The end.